Some people don't like Ms. Benson and I because we question authority, because people think you should just bow down because the government's good for you. But that's a slap in the face to every American who gave the ultimate sacrifice to create the freedom we have. And it's barely hanging on by a string. And if a few guys named Jefferson, Washington, and Madison didn't question authority, we wouldn't even have a country. And questioning authority is the most American thing you can do.
And just your name and your address, Mr. Cordova?
Hi, my name's Christopher. I'm not going to give my address. I'm here today to speak on the unsanitary bodily hygiene policy and the standards of behavior. This policy violates the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution in two respects. First, the policy improperly makes a personal attribute such as body odor a determinative factor in the city facility staff's enforcement of the policy. Because the policy's prohibition of offensive body odor is in no way restricted to instances of actual material disruptions, which are incompatible to city facility functions, the restriction impinges upon individual liberty and sanctions that which may not be sanctioned merely on the basis of body odor. Highlighted in yellow, quote, creating a nuisance to or impeding use of a city facility by others, end quote, body odor bugs. Highlighted in pink, quote, may result in warning, immediate removal, and or removal/exclusion up to 90 days, end quote. This rule should be void for vagueness because the only indication within the policy as to what constitutes a nuisance is, quote, body odor bugs. Moreover, the policy neither contains nor refers to identifiable standards, thereby failing to provide adequate notice to citizens wanting or in some cases needing to conduct business in an Englewood city facility. Because this rule impinges upon individual liberty in an arbitrary and discriminatory manner without cause, justification, or reason, this rule violates the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Secondly, since the city manager, Shawn Lewis, enacted this rule with the explicit intention of restricting persons with body odor access to Englewood city facilities, such action violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Highlighted in blue, quote, these standards of behavior protect the rights and safety of visitors, employees, and volunteers, end quote. It does nothing of the sort. To the contrary, this policy serves to violate the rights of visitors. Highlighted in green, quote, warning, removal, and exclusion for violation of these standards are supplemental to all other actions authorized by law, such as criminal charges, end quote. A violation of this rule is not criminal by nature, yet paragraph 2 of the purpose statement implies that failure to comply with the rule could result in criminal charges, presumably to arrest uncooperative individuals pursuant to the criminal trespass law. The difficulty with this conclusion is that CRS 18-4-504 third-degree criminal trespass requires a voluntary act distinct from violation of this rule. You cannot trespass someone from public property that is open to the public while they are conducting legitimate business or engaged in activity that aligns with the mission of the facility unless they commit a crime. That a person found in violation of a rule may feel inclined to remain on the property does not thereby transfer the rule into criminal provisions. Basically what this is an attack on homelessness. Any law or rule made by government must be narrowly tailored and viewpoint neutral. The rule is clearly not viewpoint neutral as it discriminates against the homeless for having body odor, something in which they have no control over as they are incapable of taking regular showers and having access to deodorant. Furthermore, what is offensive to some may not be offensive to others. In the 60s, some people found Black people to be offensive. But I think we can all agree that banning someone from public property based on the color of their skin, something in which they have no control over, just because some may be offended by their presence, is immoral and unlawful. Just as banning a homeless man with body odor, something he has no control over, just because some may be offended by his presence, is immoral and unlawful. So not only is this a violation of a homeless man or woman's civil rights protected under the 14th Amendment to conduct business on public property, but the city manager, Shawn Lewis, drafted the standards of behavior policy with such generality that it risks ensnarement of anyone who walks through the door of an Englewood city facility in a net designed for others. This gives government too much power and discretion. If a public employee doesn't like someone or doesn't like their conduct, even if it's lawful, all they have to do is say, you have body odor. And lastly, this is in violation of the First Amendment. In the 1943 case of Martin v. City of Struthers, the Supreme Court ruled the First Amendment includes freedom to receive speech as well as the freedom to speak. So we have a First Amendment right to access the library downstairs, body odor or not. I will end this with the 1886 case of Norton versus Shelby County. A unconstitutional act is not a law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. It affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. That's all I got.
Mr. Cordova, thank you very much for your time tonight. Good evening, Mr. Cordova. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
My name's Christopher. I'm not going to give my address, and I'm back today to readdress the standards of behavior. And before, about 20 minutes ago, I actually had a conversation with Mr. Lewis, and he informed me that you guys are looking into it, or that he's looking into it. I guess it was a policy that he had adopted from Longmont, I believe. Mr. Anderson, last time you had asked me if there's anything else in here that is unconstitutional that I saw. Upon further review, there's actually several things, so I want to get right into it. But before we do that, I'd like to address the things that are not unconstitutional. So we do have some legitimate things here. We got threats, harassment, vandalism, stuff like that. Mr. Lewis, these things are already illegal, so this seems a bit redundant to me. I mean, we could put any old thing on here. I mean, we could put one, it's against our policy to murder anyone in an Englewood City facility. It seems silly to me. Honestly, it seems a bit patronizing to me because we're all adults here, and the way this is written is like, we don't need to be told that we're not supposed to harass people or threaten people, stuff like that, right? But let's jump right into the unconstitutional stuff that I noticed. Disruptive activity / behavior such as noise, music, or voices. Clear violation of the First Amendment, Mr. Lewis. Now, again, this is vaguely written. So downstairs in the library, that is a limited public forum. So my First Amendment protected activity cannot disrupt the rest of the patrons' use of the library. So I can't go in there banging drums and hollering obscenities. But it says right on here, Mr. Lewis, city parks. So that's a traditional public forum. And we have the most protection under the First Amendment in a traditional public forum. So at a city park, I can go there and I could scream obscenities all day. There's nothing you guys can do about that. Bringing in personal possessions or garbage with foul odor, that goes again with the body odor stuff. So what is garbage to you or you guys may not be garbage to someone else. Maybe that is everything they own. And I mean, this doesn't seem like even a legitimate scenario. I mean, do you guys have an issue with people bringing in bags of garbage that's stinking up the place? I mean, maybe it doesn't seem very legitimate to me. Leaving personal property unattended. I hope that you don't think that you can ban someone for leaving their backpack somewhere. Failure to wear clothing covering the upper body, clear violation of the First Amendment. Mr. Lewis, you can't ban someone for wearing a bikini. It does say genitalia. Of course, I can't come in here naked, but this is public. This is the people's building. It's not your personal, privately owned business. And if it was, you could say no red shirts, no bikinis. But if somebody wants to wear a bikini in a public facility, that's protected under the First Amendment. Pornography viewing. Now, although I do not advocate for people watching pornography in public, I'm also against the idea of banning it, and it's a slippery slope, and I think it's dangerous, but I don't have time to go into all the details with that right now, maybe on the next one. But I will just say that the benefit does not outweigh the risk. And Mr. Lewis, you can't do it because it's illegal. So you will get yourself in some trouble with some civil rights lawsuits if you guys try to kick someone out for that. There's lots of things on here. I don't have time to go through everything, but that's just a big bulk of it right there. There's definitely more stuff on here. So I appreciate you, Mr. Lewis, having the conversation with me, saying that you're looking into it. I wanted to bring the rest of this stuff to your attention. Really, what I think we want, the people want, we just want this to go away. We don't need to be told that we're not allowed to harass people or vandalize things or steal stuff. And this policy here, it's policy. And we're not bound to the policy, we're bound to the law. So regardless, you can make policy for the city employees, but we don't have to abide by this, and you actually have no authority to ban anyone, even if they break the law here. So if somebody comes in here and harasses someone and the police are called and they get trespassed, they can come back the next day if they have business here. Now, if they want to get in trouble and do it again, that's on them. They keep getting trespassed, so maybe the courts could determine that they can't come back. But you as the city manager, sir, don't have the authority to ban anyone. So I just want to say, I know I'm running out of time, that when you swear no to the Constitution, it's not just a formality to get the job, sir. So I'm asking you to please honor your oath and let's get rid of this. Hi there, my name's Christopher Cordova. And just so you guys know, it's actually pronounced Cordova, not Cordova. But that's okay, a lot of people do that. It kind of depends on where you're from. So.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. We had a success. I just spoke with Mr. Lewis and he informed me that they're going to remove the bodily hygiene out of the standards of behavior. That's great news. And then I think he said something about personal property also was going to be readdressed. So with that said, that's a good first step. There's still several things on here that are unconstitutional, at least a couple. Clothing is unconstitutional, and the pornography viewing, again, like I said last time, I don't condone people watching pornography, but the benefit does not outweigh the risk, and I'd be happy to clarify that in maybe another meeting, or if anyone wants to reach out to me via email, I'd be happy to explain that to you guys.
Okay guys, so let's break down this pornography watching in public thing. Now I know many of you may have reservations in regards to this, but like I said, I don't believe the benefit outweighs the risk, and let me explain why. The 2003 case of the United States versus the ALA was a decision in which the United States Supreme Court ruled that the United States Congress has the authority to require public schools and libraries receiving E-rate discounts to install web filtering software as a condition of receiving federal funding. So they do have the authority to install web filtering software, but they don't have the authority to outright ban watching pornography in public. The chances of you running into someone who's watching pornography in a public library is far and few between. Rebecca Winning, who was the Associate Director of Communications and Public Engagement for Jefferson County Libraries, said, quote, "We rarely get complaints from patrons about being exposed to graphic images. In the standards of behavior, there's a policy that bans people from bringing in bags of garbage with foul odor. How many people are bringing in bags of garbage with foul odor? Same thing with watching pornography in a public library or any public building. To me, this is like trying to kill a cockroach with a 9mm. It's totally overkill, and what you're going to end up doing is making things worse." Winning said the library follows standards set forth by the American Library Association, which recommends against filtering computers. The American Library Association has consistently been against the idea of filtering software because blocking access to constitutionally protected speech violates the Library Bill of Rights. Internet filtering may not block all objectionable sites. Stricter filtering may even block sites that are deemed harmless, such as medical websites about breast cancer, said Cindy Phillips, Director of Library Programs and Services. Not only does web filtering software not block everything it's intended to block, but it sometimes blocks things it's not intended to block, such as breast cancer websites or National Geographic. This is educational material that every American has a right to access, and it's imperative that children can access this material. Now, although the case of the United States versus the American Library Association deemed it constitutional to install web filtering software, it also infringes upon our right to receive speech and is contradictory to the 1943 case of Martin versus City of Struthers, which is a case in which the Supreme Court ruled the First Amendment includes the freedom to receive speech, as well as the freedom to speak. Now, just because they can install web filtering software, again, doesn't mean they can outright ban the viewing of pornography. Let's refer back to Rebecca Winning, former spokeswoman for Jefferson County Public Libraries. Quote, "We follow the law. If the law allows access to certain information that you or I might find objectionable, we allow patrons to access it." Now, I know this might challenge your beliefs a little bit, but I know you all have an open mind, and that's why you're part of the DMA crew in the first place. George Orwell taught us, the founders of this country taught us, and history in general have taught us that taking away liberties bit by bit is how you lead society into a state of totalitarianism. Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, said it simply but effectively. Every time you pass a law, it is a little bite out of freedom. And that, my friends, is why the benefit does not outweigh the risk.
Takes a very confident, almost high testosterone, alpha type person to stand alone and say, I believe this, whether you all believe it or not. And most people just can't do that. Most people will make decisions based around what the other people think, so it's safe, because they can't actually defend themselves. The safe decision is to agree with what everybody else thinks. So what we really need to understand is why people say they believe things that they don't actually believe, and it's because they're afraid. And the reason that they actually say that they believe these things is because because they think that everybody else believes them.
I did write Mr. Lewis an email, and I implore all of you to check out that email where I go through everything in detail of the things that we, the people, want either revised or removed. There's other things that need to be revised as well. Miss Wright, I would like to thank you personally for you getting a lot of praise from my viewers, and I think you really care, and I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you. So I would like to read some of the parts of the email that I wrote. The ones that should still be removed, even though there's a lack of unconstitutionality, because they do not serve to make anyone in an Englewood city facility safer or feel more welcomed. And many of them serve as useless reiteration of laws that already exist, all of which everyone is already aware of. So a lot of these laws, even kindergartners understand that they can't commit these crimes that are listed in the standards of behavior policy. As children even, one of the first lessons we were taught was don't hit, right? The policy states that all of these standards are supplemental to all other actions authorized by law, and law enforcement may be called, even though that's actually not true. But it's ironic because don't hit, the role that we all learned as children, is exactly what the policy threatens to do to someone who feels inclined to remain on the property after violating other of these unconstitutional rules that still exist in the policy. If the police are called and someone decides not to cooperate by leaving, what would the police do? Would they hit them? What if the victim of an oppressive city government continued to be uncooperative in their own unlawful kidnapping? Would they get punched, tased, shot, or killed? Everything the police do is backed up by force, or at least the threat of force. Otherwise, people wouldn't listen to them. So the very existence of this policy really exposes that the people who draft the policy and the people who enforce the policy are the criminals. The vast majority of the people that enter these buildings, they don't even know that this policy exists, yet they don't harass people and, they don't vandalize things. Do some commit these acts? Yeah, of course they do, but they're the minority, and the people that are going to engage in those activities are going to do it regardless of the standards of behavior policy. Not to mention, people who abide by the law, they don't do that simply because they read the standards of behavior policy. So for all of you, is that the only reason you don't commit a crime is because you read the standards of behavior policy? Nor is it the reason for everyone else. The truth is, I feel I have a duty to safeguard freedom and hold government accountable for their wrongdoing, because government oftentimes can't follow their own rules. We have to make all of these rules coincide with the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land.
Mr. Cordova.
Yeah.
Cordova, sorry. And first up is Mr. Chris. I'm trying to think of how to pronounce the last name now. Cordova? Cordova. Sorry about that. We'll address council regarding the standards of behaviors policy. Good evening. If you could just state your name and your address for cross streets.
My name is Christopher Cordova. I'm not going to give my address. And I would just like to thank all of you. If you had anything to do with the bodily hygiene policy and facilitating that, that has been removed. I wouldn't know who had any involvement in it. None of you guys reached out to me. I did have a brief conversation with Mr. Anderson the first time I was here. But I just spoke with Mr. Lewis, and he informed me that they're getting rid of a lot of stuff on here, which is great news. Possessions of garbage, I believe, is going to be gotten rid of. Seems like a non-issue. I got some clarification. Here's the thing. If I could speak to somebody, it would be more productive than me trying to come up here and cram everything in 5 minutes over the course of 2 months. But I am appreciative. So I got some clarification on the clothing covering upper body. So it just says covering upper body. To me, that means belly button showing is not acceptable. So Mr. Lewis said that as long as it's covered, that's fine. That's all that I was asking for. Now, just briefly, CRS 18-7-201 states that if a person is to expose an intimate part of the body other than the genitals, it's only illegal if they do it with the intent to arouse another. So just want to throw that out there in case somebody wants to be topless, a woman, not doing that, but in a city park. I've seen people a couple years ago at the abortion protests, and they were topless and their police underwear. Nobody did anything about that. So, but Mr. Lewis, you were wondering about the public urination thing. So last time you said that that's not actually illegal to urinate in a hallway of a city facility.
And so you have to put it in the standards of behavior, therefore you have a reason to trespass someone. And my argument was, first of all, how many people are actually urinating in a public hallway and inform me that actually it's happened. And I'm assuming that it has happened, otherwise it would be here. But if somebody is going to urinate in a hallway of a public facility when there's a perfectly good restroom available to them, that means they're mentally ill, right? So Mr. Lewis's idea of handling that is to criminalize them and lock them in a cage or have them criminally trespass. That's not fixing the issue. I think we should allocate our resources in a much more effective way. How about we get them help? And as Regan has been saying for years, that Englewood is orchestrating an attack on the homeless. And I say homeless because homeless suffer from mental illness at a higher rate than the non-homeless. So we have disruptive activity behavior, voices. I think that's loud voices. It also does say in here that vulgar language promoted to provoke a fight. Now, Mr. Lewis informed me, I said, hey, I can curse in City Hall though, right? And he said no, because there's, I guess, a CRS that prevents that. I think what you're referring to, Mr. Lewis, is the disorderly conduct CRS. Now, disorderly conduct, you have to incite violence with your speech, but we can curse in here. There's nothing you guys can do about that. So it says right on here to promote or provoke a fight, which would be disorderly conduct. But Mr. Lewis did inform me that we can't curse in here. And so that's absolutely not true. And Mr. Mayor, every time you come and you say, hey, public comment, it's expected that it's going to be conducted with respect. And I've been respectful, but I don't have to. I choose to. So let's refer to the 1971 case of Cohen versus California, landmark case where the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Paul Robert Cohen is not guilty of disorderly conduct for walking into the corridor of a California courthouse with a jacket on that read, "Fuck the draft." That's constitutionally protected speech. And the thing is that respectful speech doesn't need to be protected. Offensive speech does. And this is what I mean when I say the government can't follow their own rules. So if somebody comes up here and they're redressing their government, you guys have to understand that people are going to be emotional and passionate about things, and that's okay. And you guys signed up to be subject to public scrutiny. And we're not in a kindergarten classroom. We're all adults here. If the F-bomb slips every now and then, you shouldn't want to do anything about that. Basically, what this is it's questioning authority. And some people don't like Ms. Benson and I because we question authority, because people think you should just bow down because the government's good for you. But that's a slap in the face to every American who gave the ultimate sacrifice to create the freedom we have. And it's barely hanging on by a string. And if a few guys named Jefferson, Washington, and Madison didn't question authority, we wouldn't even have a country. And questioning authority is the most American thing you can do.
Thank you for your time tonight, Mr. Cordova. Any questions? Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Cordova. One of my questions actually follow up on something you said last time about pornography viewing. Do you believe pornography viewing should be allowed in our public library?
I don't condone it, but I do believe that it's unconstitutional. Yeah, you can't prohibit that. Did you see the video last time where I explained it all?
No.
So essentially
that's all I needed was whether you think it should be allowed or not. Appreciate it.
It's unconstitutional.
Oh, how ridiculous. He wants to try to make him, put him on the spot.
Thank you for your time.
Anderson doesn't think pornography should be viewed in the library.
Thank you for your time tonight, Mr. Cordova.
Nice job.
Mr. Cordova, if you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Hello, my name's Christopher Cordova. I'm not going to give my address. I feel as though I'm being a bit breadcrumbed by City Council. I've had members say, thank you for reminding us of our responsibilities to the Constitution, things of that nature, yet no one's reached out to me, so here we are again in 5-minute increments over the course of almost 3 months. Miss Wright, you're the only one that gave me your card. I appreciate that, although I wasn't able to actually speak to you, and I'm just hoping that the rest of council hasn't gotten to you to intimidate you out of that. Mr. Anderson, you asked me if I support the viewing of pornography. And it's kind of a weird question to ask because I've said multiple times that I do not support viewing of pornography in a library, but I have said that it's unconstitutional and that the benefits of banning it doesn't outweigh the risk. You said last time, quote, if there are unconstitutional things in them, as I have said before, I want to get rid of those things. Well, banning pornography is one of those things. You also said, quote, I think it is well within our rights to have a library that these kind of behaviors result in getting temporarily banned from the library, end quote. What an ignorant thing to say. You think you have the right to ban constitutionally protected activity. And lastly, you said, quote, a lot of those standards of behavior are totally appropriate. So thanks for exposing that you believe banning constitutionally protected activity is totally appropriate. Mr. Ward, you said, quote, it strikes me as the type of First Amendment complaint that I would be willing to expend city funds to defend, end quote. So you want to use taxpayer dollars to attack the First Amendment. If you guys don't agree with the Constitution and what it stands for, why on earth would you become city council members and swear an oath to it? We have a word for that. It's called treason. While pornography might be, quote, obscene to some under the colloquial meaning of the word, it is not de facto legally obscene, which is to say it's protected under the First Amendment. Rebecca Winning, former Associate Director of Communications for Jefferson County Public Library, said, quote, we rarely get complaint from patrons about being exposed to graphic images. Again, it's not very likely. It could happen, but we live in a world of duality. You can't have up without down, left without right, or good without bad. And if you try to pretend like bad doesn't exist, the universe will balance itself out. This is not magic. This is science. This is an immutable law of the universe. And as Einstein would say, the theory of relativity. Standards set forth by the American Library Association recommends against filtering computers, let alone banning patrons from the library, as restricting access to constitutionally protected speech violates the Library Bill of Rights. Again, back to Rebecca Winning, quote, we follow the law. If the law allows access to certain information that you or I might find objectionable, we allow patrons to access it, end quote. 1943 case of Martin versus City of Struthers states that the First Amendment protects the right to receive speech. So regardless of whether or not you believe it's moral, it is unconstitutional. That's my point. And you're going to get yourself a civil rights lawsuit. You're already going to get sued from Robert for banning him from a park based on the standards of behavior policy. When you take people's liberties away bit by bit, it leads society into a state of totalitarianism. And the founders warned us of this, and clearly we are less free today than we were during the founding of this country. Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, said it simply but effectively when he said, quote, every time you pass a law, it is a little bite out of freedom. And that is why the benefit does not outweigh the risk. So let's talk about possible solutions without infringing upon people's civil liberties. How about you put screen protectors like Jefferson County did, and you make them wear headphones? This would be a time, place, and manner restriction that is permissible as it is narrowly tailored to serve a significant government interest while leaving open an ample alternative. Sounds simple enough. So I am still requesting that all rules and standards of behavior policy be lifted. And Ms. Niles, the fact that you have let this standards of behavior nonsense continue for this long is ridiculous. What kind of advice are you giving Mr. Lewis? And Mr. Lewis, after your comment last time that it's illegal to curse in a city facility, I'm now asking City Council to terminate Mr. Lewis. I'm also asking for the immediate resignation of Mr. Ward and Mr. Anderson. And if you don't do so, I will be facilitating a petition to recall on June 6th. Because Shawn Lewis, Steve Ward, and Joe Anderson are all in violation of their oath of office, and you are all traitors to the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Cordova, for your comments tonight. Any questions for members of council? Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Cordova, where do you live?
That's none of your business.
Okay, thank you.
Member Prange.
I just had a point of clarification. So are you saying that Jeffco libraries actually indeed allow pornography to be viewed within their libraries?
To my knowledge, they do not anymore, but at the time of this article that I was reading, yes, they used to. They did for several years. So,
Okay. Thank you.
All right, with no further questions, thanks for your time tonight.
All Joe Anderson wants to know is where he lives.
Mr. Cordova, if you could please give your street address or cross streets, appreciate it.
the First Amendment of the United States Constitution protects the right to access and view legal content. It's important to note there are also valid concerns about the potential harms associated with unrestricted access to pornography in public spaces. Balancing the protection of individual rights with the need to ensure a safe and appropriate environment in public spaces requires careful consideration of all perspectives involved. I want to create a balance to where we can protect the children while not infringing upon civil liberties. Mr. Ward, I actually saw your personal Facebook post where you were bashing me and making a mockery of me. That's real professional. But you did bring up the 2003 case of the United States versus the ALA. And you're not watching my videos because I actually explained that one. And you don't have to watch my videos, but my Englewood videos have over 2 million combined views. So you guys might want to check that out to see what they're saying about your city. There's a lot of people watching. But that case law allows you to install web filtering software. It doesn't say that you can outright ban pornography in the library. And that would be one way to mitigate it. I'm fine with that. I want it removed from the policy because that policy is full of lies. It's deceitful. You do not have the right to ban someone for constitutionally protected activity. Mr. Anderson, I'm not sure if you're actually listening to me when I'm up here talking because you said this guy wants threats, harassment. He wants everything removed. I don't know if you're not listening or you're just gaslighting the city because it seems like you're trying to convince them that I want this removed so that we can harass and threaten people. That's not what I said. I said it's a reiteration of laws that already exist. It's patronizing and insulting to tell full-grown adults that we can't threaten people. We know this. If you remove it from the policy, that's not going to give people the green light. Hey guys, we can go harass people in City Hall now. Remember Prange, you were the one that told me, thank you for reminding us of our responsibilities to the Constitution. And then you turn around and say, I don't know any case law, but we just shouldn't have pornography in the library. You're basically admitting you have no clue what you're talking about, but I'm going to enforce my feelings. I spend hours preparing these speeches, looking up case law and looking up CRSs so that I can come here prepared to make an intelligent argument. If I had come here the first day and said, hey guys, I don't know any case law, but you guys just shouldn't restrict body odor, would you have taken me seriously? Remember Russell, you asked if there's a city ordinance that bans pornography in the public library, and if there isn't, there should be. And I see that you're trying to create one. Well, when I say let's create a balance, I don't mean let's make unconstitutional city ordinances. Again, for the third time, government can't follow their own rules. The only person up here with any integrity is Member Wright. What does she say? I believe in the Constitution, and we'll just leave it at that. And I don't want to speak for you, ma'am, because I don't know, but the way I perceive that is that you are a courageous lioness trapped in a cage with Scar and a bunch of hyenas. And it takes courage, and it's difficult to stand up and say, I believe this, no matter who all believes that. And I'm right there with you. So stay strong because this city needs you. And I appreciate your comments that you made about public comment. So you guys want to enforce your policy now that says that you must live in the city of Englewood. And Mayor Sierra, I guess you guys were supposed to work on that last year, right? But now that I'm coming here, now you're going to enforce the policy. And I will never tell you guys my address or my cross streets because I've had my tires slashed, my property vandalized because people hate me because I speak the truth. And truth is treason in the empire of lies. And that's a valid reason. And there might be many other people that want to redress their government, but they don't want people to know where they live either. And you know what? I don't live in Englewood. I live in Denver. And my tax dollars fund your fire department that saves you $18 million a year. But you want to prevent me from coming up here and speaking. I can tell you this. I do frequent a Englewood City facility several times a week. This standards of behavior policy affects me directly. You don't have to live in the city of Englewood to be affected by the city of Englewood. Now, what about homeless people? That wasn't addressed. Are you going to bar homeless people from speaking? They don't have an address. They don't live in Englewood. And if you do allow the homeless to speak, well, now your policy is no longer viewpoint neutral. It's viewpoint discriminatory. You can't say, well, if you're homeless, you can come in, but if you don't live in Englewood, you can't. This is the stuff that I'm talking about, guys. You guys are supposed to be the experts. I don't know what your city attorney is telling you, but she's the attorney. I'm just a guy that does research. And I don't even want to come back here. You guys are saying that I'm monopolizing public comment. If you see a lot of me, it's because you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. So I don't want to keep coming back, honestly. And I want to maybe come back here in a couple months just to check up on stuff. But keep in mind when you're doing your voting on public comment that it's we the people. It's not we the Englewood.
Thank you, Mr. Cordova. Please refrain from applause in the council chambers as this as this draws attention to one side of you and makes others feel uncomfortable. So we have a policy that we don't applaud or cheer or anything during public comment. Thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Cordova, for your time tonight. Do we have any questions from council? See none, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Cordova. If you just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Christopher Cordova, I'm in Denver. I told you guys that I wasn't going to come back for a while, and I kept true to that. It's been a few months. I was actually going to wait even longer to come back, but Joe Anderson, Steve Ward, and Mr. Lewis did something pretty foolish, so we'll talk about that momentarily. But I wanted to bring some case law to your attention since member Prange doesn't know any, and this is in regards to pornography in a library. And I was hoping you guys would do some research, but clearly you haven't, so let's refer to the 1997 case of Rita versus ACLU. The Supreme Court ruled that the Federal Commission's Decency Act is an unconstitutional restriction on speech. The landmark ruling affirmed the dangers of censoring what one judge called, quote, the most participatory form of mass speech yet developed, end quote. The CDA passed in 1996, making it a crime for anyone to engage in online speech that is indecent or patently offensive if the speech could be viewed by a minor. The ACLU argued that the censorship provisions were unconstitutional because they would criminalize expression protected by the First Amendment. In a landmark 7-2 decision written by Justice John Paul Stevens, the court ruled that the CDA placed a, quote, unacceptably heavy burden on protected speech, end quote. The court also wrote that, quote, an interest of encouraging freedom of expression in a democratic society outweighs any theoretical but unproven benefit of censorship, end quote. Didn't I say that? I'm pretty sure I said that a few times, that banning pornography, the benefits don't outweigh the risk. But some of you chuckled, others blatantly made fun of me, and you all thought that I was foolish, but 7 Supreme Court judges didn't think I was foolish. Plaintiffs comprise nearly 30 organizations, including the American Library Association. Mr. Ward, I understand that you don't perceive this 2003 case of the United States versus the ALA correctly, which states that you are required to install web filtering software in order to receive federal funding. And I said on the record that I'm okay with that. I just want it removed from the policy, but I would also like to just let you guys know that when it comes down to it, I am on board with the ALA on that one, because when you install web filtering software, it'll restrict National Geographic, breast cancer websites, things of this nature, which we have a right to receive. Again, Martin versus City of Struthers, we have a right to receive speech, as well as the freedom to speak. So these case laws do contradict each other, but that'll be something for another time. But it gets worse. So Mr. Lewis isn't here, but Mr. Lewis drafted an administrative order that prohibits taking anyone's picture in an Englewood City facility without their consent. And I'm pretty sure he got that from his friend Cranberry over in Sheridan. And to be honest with you guys, I never thought that I would find a more corrupt city government than Sheridan. But here we are. You guys are getting pretty close. So if you guys want to get rid of me, this isn't the way to do it. You don't do what you guys did, I'm going to talk about in a minute. Mr. Lewis, I just wanted him to honor his oath, that's it. But I already did an audit down in the library like 2 years ago. It was great. I had no reason to go back there. But now I have to, right? So you're perpetuating what you don't want. Just honor your oath, that's all we're asking. And I won't have to come back here. And to be honest, I don't even want to come back here, but now I have to go record in the library, and hopefully I won't get arrested because, I'm not going to be bullied out of my rights, I can promise you that. So I saved the best for last. We had Joe Anderson and Steve Ward went up on a troll channel, live on the internet, it's got 20,000 views, which is like an anti-First Amendment channel run by a Canadian, he's not even an American. And they bashed Regan Benson and I for about an hour and a half. Claiming they're not in their official capacity, but the entire conversation was in regards to Englewood City business. And then they threw Kim Wright under the bus too, in front of thousands of people. And yeah, you do have a First Amendment right, but it's really unprofessional for you to go up on a troll channel and talk trash about the people that come up to this podium to speak. It's not a good look for you, buddy.
Look at that stupid smirk on his face. He loves it. And I hadn't been to a city council meeting in 3 months. And he did this knowing it was going to get me to come back. I'm sure the rest of the city was perfectly content with having me out of their hair, so it makes no logical sense as to why he would do this knowing it's going to get me to come back, unless he wants me to come back. And you can tell by that smirk on his face, he wants me to come back. Why? Because he's a narcissist, and narcissists love the attention, whether it's good or bad. Joe Anderson and Steve Ward have no business sitting on that dais for multiple reasons, but another one to add to the list is because they are both retaliating against Regan and I for exercising our First Amendment right. One notable mention is a 2011 Law Review article written by Ivan E. Bodensteiner. Retaliation is a deliberate action used to send a clear message that complaining is unwelcome and risky. It is employed to instill fear in others who might consider making a complaint in the future. Those with cause for complaining are frequently among the most vulnerable in an institution. Once they complain, they are labeled troublemakers. Retaliation and the fear of retaliation becomes a potent weapon used to maintain the power structure within the institution.
And Mr. Ward, you said, this might be the easiest to defend recall in the history of recalls. Well, maybe not. I'm giving you more case law. And especially not after your conduct of going up in front of thousands of people and talking trash about the people that come up to this podium to redress their government. Why would you guys do that? I think this might be one of the easiest to win recalls. And actually, I can facilitate the recall. I just can't sign. I can't turn it in.
Mr. Cordova, your 5 minutes are up. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions from members of council? Up next is Chris Cordova, here to address council. Chris, if you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
I don't know who is the one that's responsible for the timer, but there's a lot of inconsistencies last time. And I know you guys were talking about changing the rule, but to my knowledge, it's still that it should start after the speaker says their name and cross streets, or they just start their speech like I did. The first speaker last time, their timer started 32 seconds after he said his name and address. And I know he had a thumb drive to plug in, but after he started his presentation, the timer started 17 seconds later. And my time actually started after Mayor Sierra asked me to say my name and address. I didn't even speak yet and my timer got started. I think we need to be more consistent on that, guys. And Regan Benson and I lost the most time. I don't know if, you probably say, oh, that wasn't intentional, but out of all the people that either gained or lost time, we got the biggest shaft, so. But I would like to start by thanking the three ladies on my right. Ms. Prange isn't here, but I would like to thank you ladies for standing up to this bully over here. I know that takes a lot of courage to do. And Ms. Prange, I know, was teasing you a little bit last time, so thank you. But I did a public records request on Joe Anderson and Steve Ward and their emails because I wanted to see if there was anything that would link them to this troll channel. And there was no responsive records. So if that's true, that means, Joe Anderson, you're the one that reached out to them. And I say you because I'm pretty sure you're the ringleader, not Steve. And Steve, I'll be honest with you, I don't think you're an evil person. I really don't. I think that you have good intentions. I really do. I think you're misinformed and you make really poor decisions. And yeah, you piss me off a lot. But that's how I feel about this council. You guys are not as bad as Sheridan. I mean, that's not saying much because it doesn't take too much to be better than Sheridan, but you're not. Except for Joe Anderson, though. You'd fit right in with them. You are a very dark energy, low vibrational soul disguised as a pastor. And I came to that conclusion by that stupid smirk that's on your face right now, the same one that you had the entire time last time, right? Because you loved it. And I was thinking, why would he reach out to this troll channel? He knows it's going to get me back up here, but then it hit me. That's what you want, right? You love the attention. You love it. Because you're a narcissist. And narcissists love attention, whether it's good or bad. So it reminded me of a kid who gave up candy for Lent. And then finally he got to have his first lollipop. Yeah, he's back, right? After you turned this city council meeting into a Jerry Springer show, you said, quote, they test the boundaries of what they can get away with. You can't get away with rights. You said, they try to find something that's legal, but that they can provoke a reaction from. Like Jennifer Lambert said that too, so. But that's also a narcissistic trait. You see, I don't provoke reactions. I go and I peacefully record. And if somebody else is going to get irate and then blame me, that's called blame shifting. It's a narcissistic trait. Miss Lambert, she might suffer from that too. So I absolutely do not provoke reactions. I really don't. And even if I was provoking a reaction just for the sake of the argument, you sure as hell give me a good reaction, don't you, Joe? And I don't even want to keep coming back here. I know that's what you want. So hopefully I won't have to come back because, you know, it's very high stress to come here. It really is. And like Ms. Prange said, now we're wasting how many tax dollars on all this extra security? We had 4 officers here last time, right? Because you guys need security because you guys did something foolish. You're making a mockery of this city council, right? Not us, not Ms. Benson and I. You know, you guys are. And your colleagues see right through it. You're not fooling anyone. I don't think you're trying to fool anyone. You're just scumbag and you're happy about it. And it's really sad. I think that there is a lot of hope for a lot of these people out here. Ms. Niles, even Mr. Lewis. I mean, I'm pissed off about that administrative order. I don't know if that's going to be going through, but that's a terrible thing that you would do that. But again, I don't think you're quite as bad as Cranberry yet, but so I just wanted to put that on the record, you know, that we're not here to provoke a reaction, okay? And exercising your rights is not getting away with anything, Mr. Anderson.
Chris, your 5 minutes are up. Any questions for Chris Cordova? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, I like those new glasses, Joe. Looking sharp. You know, there was a lot of people in here taking pictures in the pews. That was interesting. That's going to go away if you guys pass this resolution. But I'd like to address the use of excessive force from the Englewood Police Department, specifically Officer Robbie M. Ford, who on July 25th, 2024, tased a man who was sitting down on a park bench.
Last time I'm going to tell you.
For noncompliance and verbal opposition. I'd like to refer to Englewood Police Department's policy manual, 202.7, civil disturbances. In all cases involving civil disobedience, this shall be done using only the minimum force necessary to accomplish the mission. I implore you all to watch the video and decide for yourself if Officer Ford used the minimum force necessary. 300.3, use of force. Officers shall use only that amount of force that reasonably appears necessary given the facts and circumstances. 300.3.2, factors used to determine the reasonableness of force. There's about a dozen of these. Let's read the first 5. A, immediacy and severity of the threat to officers and others. I saw no threat. B, the conduct of the individual being confronted. He was refusing to cooperate with his own kidnapping because the police were trying to steal his dog, which they didn't have the right to steal his dog because they didn't do a proper investigation. He subsequently ended up getting his dog back. C, the number of officers available versus subjects. 1 subject, 4 officers. D, the effects of suspected drug or alcohol use. He seemed pretty sober to me. E, the individual's mental state or capacity. You got me on that one. He was quite distraught, but that's pretty reasonable given the fact that, you know, he was having his dog taken away from him by force. So that leads me to the next policy, 300.3.5, alternative tactics and de-escalation. When circumstances permit, officers should use nonviolent strategies and techniques to decrease the intensity of a situation, improve decision-making, improve communication, reduce the need for force, and increase voluntary compliance. Example given, summoning additional resources. I didn't see any additional resources being summoned. You guys have co-responders, right? How come Officer Ford didn't summon a co-responder? In fact, how come the co-responder didn't just show up with the police in the beginning? The police have dealt with this specific individual in the past. He's homeless. Everyone knows that the homeless suffer from mental illness at a higher rate than the non-homeless, and they're taking his dog. No one thought maybe to summon a co-responder? Improve communication. Officer Ford definitely didn't improve communication. In fact, to the contrary, he raised his voice and started using profanity.
You guys are trying to force the police to intimidate me and take my dog.
I'm not trying to intimidate you, but I'm actually trying to have a man-to-man conversation. You've been talking over me the entire damn time.
But hey, again, government, what? They can't follow their own rules, right? But it gets worse. Officer Matthew Stanley, who, by the way, was the one who was cleared for forgetting to wear his body cam when he unalived Christopher Martinez outside of the Pizza Hut, arrested another man who was recording the incident and charged him with interference.
Step back a little bit.
You're wrong.
Okay, stand back. I'm not going to ask you again.
I'm on public property.
I understand that. I need you to
And you
stand back.
work for me. You work for me.
I understand that.
You're going to stand back.
David, you want your, what are you doing?
I ain't doing nothing.
You're not standing back when I tell you to.
CRS 18-8-104, a person commits obstructing a peace officer by using or threatening to use violence, force, physical interference, or an obstacle. It's a physical act. His mere presence cannot be construed as obstruction, and verbal opposition cannot be construed as obstruction. Let's read your policy, 442.2. Englewood Police Department recognizes the right of persons to lawfully record members of this department who are performing their official duties. So the individual recording who got slammed into the wall and his face was bleeding, had to have medical called, locked in a cage, actually didn't break the law, according to the CRS. But the man who arrested him, Officer Matthew Stanley, did break the law twice. CRS 16-3-311, a person has the right to lawfully record any incident involving a peace officer. And on the civil side, CRS 13-21-128, a peace officer intentionally interferes with a person's lawful attempt to record any incident involving a peace officer. Officer Matthew Stanley, he doesn't need to be reprimanded. He needs to be terminated because he doesn't know how to honor his oath. And he violated a man's civil rights. That's unacceptable. And Officer Robbie Ford not only needs to be terminated, but he needs to be charged and locked in a cage and isolated from society because he's dangerous and he's a threat to anyone who is in the city of Englewood. These are the issues that matter right here. Again, watch the video. It's disturbing to watch. You can watch it on my channel if you want to. But this really is the public health concern right here.
Chris, your 5 minutes are up. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight. Up next is, actually, that concludes, members of the public, please. Regan, you're disrupting the meeting. You've done this on a regular occurrence. If you disrupt another meeting going forward, I'm gonna ask you to leave the meeting, so. Good morning, Chris, or good morning. Good evening, Chris.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind stating your name and your address or cross streets.
Yeah, my name's Christopher Cordova. I live in Denver. And I would like to start with thanking Shawn Lewis, Tim Dodd, and Tina Prange for checking on me last time. I was struggling up here and I was going through some stuff, but I'm better now, so thank you. Steve Ward wrote in his article, recently our city council meetings have seen disruptive public comments from an out-of-town First Amendment auditor, including contentious statements indicative of personal beliefs. Now, we're going to get into whether it's a personal belief or a fact momentarily, but Mr. Ward, when you refer to me to someone that is from out of town, you're manipulating the city because it doesn't matter if I live across the country, but I literally live across the street. And I'm going to tell all of you, just as I told Joe Anderson shortly after he flicked a French fry into my chest, that I spend about $10,000 a year for the last decade in the city of Englewood. He goes on to write, the individual claimed that our policy prohibiting the public viewing of sexually explicit materials in our library violates the First Amendment. That's not my personal belief. That's a fact. You forgot to put Reno versus ACLU in there, where the American Library Association was a plaintiff. And I was done talking about the porn stuff, but I mean, you're bringing it up, but hey, you know what? My statements are contentious. He goes on to say, I am left thinking about how free speech affects others and how having the right to do something doesn't necessarily make it right. And I agree. And have any of you heard of me watching porn in the library? I have, however, said that the benefit of banning it doesn't outweigh the risk. And according to Justice John Paul Stevens, he agrees with me. And he said, the interest in encouraging freedom of expression in a democratic society outweighs any theoretical but unproven benefit of censorship. So, Mr. Ward, I don't think you're non-rational. I think you're stubborn and your pride and ego's in the way, and you can't admit that you're wrong about that. So now you're trying to gaslight the city. Speaking of this clapping policy here, Mr. Mayor, the 5 seconds that we spend clapping after someone's public comment is not disrupting the meeting. You are actually disrupting the meeting by stopping the meeting every single time someone claps. And how many minutes did you guys spend discussing your policy about it? 20 to 30 minutes? It's a narcissistic trait for you to consistently disrupt the meeting and then blame us for disrupting the meeting. And the policy has to be viewpoint neutral, yet I've seen countless times people come up here and shower you guys with adulation. And when people clap after that, the mayor rarely has anything to say about it. In fact, he only really has a lot to say about it when Regan Benson does it specifically. And on your policy over there, it's vague. It just says no clapping. It doesn't say no clapping at public comment. It doesn't say no clapping unless it's for the chief of police. Mr. Mayor, your obsession with restricting free speech in the form of a no clapping policy stems from either incompetence, ignorance, or in my opinion, retaliation against those whom you disagree with.
Mr. Cordova, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions? Ms. Wiper, please, you know our council policy is not to allow any clapping. The reason for it is that we don't want to dissuade someone with a differing point of view from coming and speaking during public comment, so please dissuade. Any questions for Mr. Cordova? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Cordova.
Nice job. Wow, really good job. Yeah.
Please, you know our council policy is not to allow clapping. The reason for it is we don't want to dissuade someone with a differing point of view from coming and speaking during public
There he
comment,
goes,
so
interrupting the
please
meeting.
dissuade. Any questions for Mr. Cordova? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.
No
Mr.
questions.
And with that, concludes public comment. Member Ward, when you're ready, you can give a response.
I'll try to take this as much in order as possible, but I will begin by acknowledging that Mr. Cordova was here, and that's all I have to say on that subject. Ms. Lambert,
Ms. Benson, please.
you,
No laughing.
Ms. Lambert, you always provide useful, civil, polite public comment.